welcome to the Bookshelf Odyssey. My name is Art, and I have a special guest with me today, Jess from Dickens and Docks on Instagram. If you go to her Instagram page, that's pretty much what you see there. So I'm going to probably talk a little bit about her Instagram and what she does there. I know she has a Dickens event in December that I've really enjoyed participating in a little bit here and there. But I think last year was really the first year I had come across it. But anyway, all that, we don't want to bury the lead here. We're also talking about some underrated Victorian writers. And Jessica's going to talk to us about Margaret Oliphant. She's one probably of all the underrated writers we've been talking about. She's the one I've read the most of, which is to say not a whole lot, but so I'm looking forward to hearing all that. But Jess, welcome to the Bookshelf Odyssey.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here.
Yeah, I'm glad this worked out. I am looking forward to talking about Margaret Oliphant, but we've got two Dickens fanatics together here. We might have to talk about him just a little bit.
Come up.
Yeah. So if you want to play a drinking game every time we talk about him, no, better not. But you want to go ahead and just introduce us to who you are and a little bit about your channel and
Sure.
why a Dickens theme.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm at Dickens and Docks on Instagram. I actually just for this Victober started a little baby booktube account with the same name, but mostly Instagram. And I started I was 2018, several years ago with my sister-in-law who is also, she's at the Bookish Cook here. And we just got talking about how much we love books. And she's like, did you know there's this whole community of people that also want to talk about the same kind of old books? And so that's where it got started. And Dickens was my first love of classic literature.
Mm-hmm.
And I came to him pretty early in my life. My mom was an English major when I was like growing up. She was going back to school to get her degree. And she would come home and talk to me about, I remember Barnaby Rudge, she was studying that. And so we discussed it, and then she showed us, like, we watched The Great Expectations and all kinds of adaptations growing up, and then I read them fairly early on. We had a section in our library that was, like, all these little tiny pocket classics of Dickens, and I went through the whole thing in the library. Every time I go, I get a different Dickens book, and I'm sure I didn't understand half of what I was reading, because I was, like, maybe 12, but I loved
Yeah.
it, so
Yeah.
yeah, it's great.
I was about that age when I came across Dickens as well.
Uh-huh.
I had heard a trailer on the radio for a, miniseries of Great Expectations, I think,
Oh, okay.
and I sound like that sounds really amazing, like really spooky and creepy and all that. So
Mhm.
I had tried to read the book, and I got through 5 or 6 chapters, and I'm like, this is too hard. It's taken me forever, but I enjoyed it, but. Then I realized, oh, he's the guy who wrote A Christmas Carol. Anyway,
Yeah,
found that is a much easier
it
Dickens
is
book
definitely
to,
more accessible.
yeah. Read Christmas Carol, and then it's been kind of a ongoing appreciation for him since.
That's
I
wonderful.
yeah, I've been able to read all of his novels, most of his short stories,
Oh,
and it's been great. You can't see it so well on the camera, but over here I have like 3 or 4 shelves of
I can
biographies,
see
and
some
yeah,
Dickens-ish stuff over
yeah.
there.
I've got my action figure here, and I think that like little caricature there. I had ordered a poster from the Dickens Museum, I think it was, and that
Okay.
came along with it.
Hey,
It's like kind of a thanks for ordering, supporting
that's
us
so
kind of thing.
cool.
So yeah,
I
yeah.
have
But
to restrain
yeah.
myself here not talking just about Dickens because
I know, yeah. We might have to definitely film a
yeah.
little segment because I'm also doing a series about Dickens for Victober as
Great.
well. So I promised special guests, and I've only had one so far. So
Well,
I
if you
di-
need someone to just go off about Dickens,
we will have to do that right after this one if you have time for sure.
sounds good.
All right. Um, but let's talk about Margaret Oliphant. The greatest joke I heard was that let's talk about the Oliphant in the room here. So
I know, I think about that every time. I
I
think
love
of
puns.
Samwise Gamgee saying Oliphants.
Yes, yes. When
Yeah.
read The Lord of the Rings and he talks about Oliphants, all I can imagine is this Victorian woman coming across the plain, you know?
I love it.
Yes. All right. Well, let's find out about her. What do you know about her life, about who she is and what she wrote?
Yeah, she was a rock star. She was amazing. So she was born in 1828 in Scotland,
Hmm.
in Midlothian, I think. I don't know exactly how to say that. And she was born to, so her dad was a clerk, and her mom really wanted her to be well read. So she would kind of introduce her to good literature and helped her get somewhat of an education. And she was engaged to someone when she was about like fairly young, like not quite 20, I think, and it was broken off. And so after that, she wrote her first book a couple years later at the age of 21. And what amazes me about her is that her writing was not just for fun. You know, a lot of these women who wrote in the Victorian era were maybe just trying their hand at writing, and she was one of those who wrote to survive. So she wrote her first book to support her brother, who was an alcoholic, to try to help him out. He was, I think, in debt. And then a few years later, she married her cousin, and she was 29 years old, which is like old maid status at that point.
Hmm.
And she married him, and he only lived for 7 years and then died of tuberculosis. He was a stained glass artist. And so they were in London, and she was left with 6 children in 7 years, if you can believe it.
Wow.
One of them died in birth, and then two others died within a year of birth. And all of them died before her. But she ended up supporting her alcoholic brother for 25 years. And she took in her other brother and his 2 kids. And then she had her own 2 sons. She lost her older daughter. I mean, she had so much loss in her life. And she had so many people who were depending on her and her writing career to keep them all afloat. I just can't even imagine. In fact, when she died, or not when she died, but when she was older and nearing death, she noticed a hole in her finger from writing so much. And she was even in her deathbed correcting proofs of her writing. So she
Wow.
was amazing. It's like 100 books or more and 79 short stories. And yeah, she
Hmm.
was just something. I
Oh,
can't even
well,
imagine writing that much.
you said she was a rock star. You're not kidding.
Yeah,
That's incredible.
seriously. She is.
Um, yeah. What's neat is I know one of the things that prevented women from writing. There's several, but it's just the fact of being a mother.
Mhm.
Pregnancies. How so many pregnancies and
Yeah.
having that to care for her children. Often wouldn't allow them time to read or read
Mhm.
or write.
Mhm.
It looks like she somehow made that happen.
Yeah, I don't even know how she did it, but she was amazing. Actually, and one of the things I love is this is where I first got really interested in her because I'd read, oh, what did I read first? I was some short stories, I think, of hers, and I
Hmm.
liked them. And then we, for Dickens December, I think it was a year or two ago, we read Old Lady Mary, is what it's called.
Hmm.
Did you read that one with us? I can't remember if that
I
was.
I believe so. I wasn't a very vocal or active part in.
That's okay.
But yeah, I know I've read that one, Old Lady Mary.
Yeah, that one, and it's sort of a ghost story. And
Yeah.
in the introduction to the whole, it's like A Widow's Tale and Other Stories was the collection. J.M. Barrie, the Peter Pan author,
Hmm.
he said some. Do you care if I read a quote from him? It's
Oh
really
yeah,
cool.
go for it. Yeah.
He said, I wonder if there is among the younger Scottish novelists of today anyone so foolish as to believe that he has a right to a stool near this woman. Anyone who has not experienced a sense of shame and some rage at his heart, if he found that for a moment his little efforts were being taken more seriously than hers. I should like to lead the simple man by the ear down the long procession of her books. So he just felt like she was unappreciated even in her own day.
Wow.
And then he said this about her. Mrs. Oliphant was herself the fine Scots gentlewoman she drew so incomparably in her books, most sympathetic when she unbent, and a ramrod if she chose. The grand dame at one moment, almost a girl it might be the next. Her sense of fun often made her a girl again. She was of an intellect so alert that one wondered if she ever fell asleep.
Hmm.
So, quite
Wow.
a leap.
That that might be that might be the most beautiful thing I've ever heard Barry write. So
I know.
that's really
I agree.
that is a fan letter big time. Wow. I like that. Yeah, and she, as you said, she has written quite a bit, and
Mhm.
that's another thing I've enjoyed about this series. I think at least three of the four writers have all been very prolific writers. So what I'm hoping is to read beyond the standard fare,
Yes.
and then when you get to these writers who, I mean, had just a prodigious output, that makes me excited. I'm like, all right, I got.
I know. There's so much to read. Well, sometimes I used to feel a little sad, like I feel like I've read all the major classics, and now I'm
Right.
discovering I've only read the ones that people thought were, great or whatever, and they have become the famous ones. But there's so much out there, and they're really good. At least
Mm-hmm.
everything I've read of hers so far has been
Mm-hmm.
excellent.
Yeah, yeah. When I first, well, I'm gonna have to mention Dickens here, but
Okay.
Dickens was kind of like my gateway into Victorian literature, and I read a lot of Dickens, and I didn't really even think about the fact that there could have been other writers at the time,
Yeah, I
where
know. He's sort of like the Victorian author.
yeah, yeah, and this the whole idea of a Dickensian type setting. Immediately you picture that what that is, and then thanks to BookTube, I was introduced to other writers like Elizabeth Gaskell, who's an absolute favorite of mine, and then the Brontes, and those are kind of the big names, and then from there you start thinking, okay, well, I've read them all, but then I learned about a guy named Trollope who
Oh, I
is
love that.
probably not underrated, but he's not maybe as on the same level as like Dickens, but then you get Trollope, and you get Wilkie Collins, and then
Mhm.
you dig deeper and you get ladies like Margaret Oliphant, who I know this year's group read is her book Hester,
Yes.
and that's the first one of hers that I read, and I loved that book.
Same
Yeah.
here. It
Um,
is excellent. It's so interesting because one of the things she does really well, I think, is write about women
hmm
and not in a, and I love Dickens, you know that, but he
hmm
does have a lot of women who are caricatures. They're either like these good or fallen women. And I think that sort of suits what he's trying to do his with his
Yeah.
books. He does a lot of major contrasts, but her women are very real and very fleshed out and very human, at
hmm
least the ones I've read so far. And I really like that. It's nice to have a little change from just the picture perfect Victorian women.
Right. Especially in Dickens's early novels, they're just the women are just really almost flaky, kind of,
I
or
know, they're hard to read for me, the earlier one.
yeah, or like you said, the what they call the angel of the house, this
Yeah.
idealized perfect woman, and um, yeah, and you got to read it with context and everything. It helps, but
Yeah.
um, he does. And I know Katie Lumsden has talked about this in her channel, but he does develop in his ability to write women characters over time,
Yes. Oh,
which
yes.
is really neat to see that. And because I'm in a group read. We're reading Our Mutual Friend,
I
and
was just going to say our mutual
yeah,
friend.
yeah,
I love
really
I love
good.
the women in that one. He has such
Yes,
a variety and they're much more human. He definitely gets better and better
yeah,
as
yeah. But yeah, Hester was just incredible, and I'm actually surprised I'm not rereading it this year. But
I'm
I
telling you one that I'm not either because I
oh,
just read
okay,
it like a year and a half ago and yes, but I
yeah,
loved it. I really loved it.
yeah. I've enjoyed kind of reading some of the reactions and conversation with it.
Mhm.
And yeah, it is, to me, it's refreshing to find characters like that with agency, with what they call these crunchy characters, with meat on it. There's substance to it. That's what one kind of a side note, but one of the, I don't enjoy watching older movies like from the 50s and 60s, because the women actors, they're just, oh, it's just so ridiculous. I can't stand it.
It's just the type that they all had to act like. I know.
Yeah, yeah,
I do
they're
love old movies, but now that I watching them now versus when I was growing up, showing them to my kids, and now I'm like, oh, guys, this isn't okay, or don't treat girls like this, or don't act like that.
there's one my sister made me watch with her. I don't remember what it was about, but like every time this lady would speak, she would just kind of like stare off into the distance and have this breathy voice, and I'm like, ah, would you stop?
Not real.
I know. Anyway, all that to say, Margaret Oliphant just writes so beautifully about women, and as somebody who had to live by her pen practically,
Yeah.
when she writes about characters like Hester, she's writing from experience.
Hmm. Yes, I think she probably put a lot of herself into a lot of her characters, and and I know she published a lot. I haven't dived yet deeply into as much of her works as I want to because I've read Hester and Old Lady Mary, and there's a short story series. Oh my goodness, I can't remember the name of it.
Hmm.
I think it's like the what the oh shoot, did I write it down somewhere? Anyway, it's sort of like a wedding journey on a train kind of a thing, and there are three parts to it, and it was wonderful.
Oh.
And then I'm reading right now the first of the Carlingford Chronicles. Do you know that
Hmm.
series? Like, it's like Miss Marjoribanks and Phoebe Jr.
Yeah.
and all those. I'm just in the middle of the Rector right now, so that's the extent of, and just a handful of short stories that I can't remember the names of. And so I know there's so much more to discover. But she wrote like crazy for Blackwell magazine,
Hmm.
and she described herself as a general utility woman. So, or Blackwoods, not Blackwell, Blackwoods. And it makes me, I just wish I could have a conversation with her because I'd be
Hmm.
curious to know like how much of this was from experience, how much of this was just because you had to crank out stories, and how did she still pull a lot of humanity into her stories if they had to be executed at such a quick rate. Do you know what I'm saying? Like
Hmm.
I can't even think up a story, one story on my own, and to come up with so many and crank them out like that, it's kind of amazing.
Yeah. Yeah. She even dabbles in one book a little bit with science fiction. Um,
Really? I haven't read that one yet.
yeah, it's called A Beleaguered City.
Oh,
Um, and I want to say, is it like zombies or ghosts? I can't remember now.
oh, now I
Uh,
really want to read that for my fantasy one. I might have to switch things around.
yeah, yeah. I'm gonna, because it's been a while since I've read it, but but yeah, it takes place in like the early 20th century, so it's a little bit in the future,
Interesting.
um, and I've really come to enjoy some like Victorian science fiction.
Yes.
Besides H.G. Wells, it's one of those things that Booktube and Victober really opened my mind to, or my knowledge to, is that H.G. Wells wasn't the only science fiction writer at the time. Um, even
Yeah.
Trollope wrote
I was going to say
one.
Trollope had that, which I haven't read yet either, but I want
Yeah,
to.
I haven't. I'm going to be doing a buddy read in December of I can't think of the title now of Trollope's book, but yeah, it takes place in the future, I guess. And I just finished this past August a book called The Mummy, written by Jane Loudon, who was a Victorian botanist. I guess she wrote a lot
Yes.
about.
I
Uh,
heard didn't you talk
oh,
about that in another episode?
yes,
Yeah,
yeah,
okay. That's where I heard about it.
yeah. I read it for the reading month called Garbogust, where you read trashy literature. So,
I love
uh,
it.
yeah, it's a lot of
Trashy.
fun. Yeah.
Oh,
So I had
that's
to
my kind
read.
of trashy lit.
Yeah, yeah. And it's said with love.
Yeah.
The man who hosts it, he loves the schlocky, like 1950s kind of hard boiled detective novels, stuff like that.
Uh-huh.
And anyway, so I started reading like Penny Dreadfuls and things for that reading challenge, and that's been fun.
Oh, fun. I love it. That's
Yeah.
great. That's like my favorite ghost stories because I can't do the modern horror stuff. But Victorian ghost stories are the best
Oh, they
because
are. Yeah.
that little bit of a tingle up your spine, but it's not like it's going to give you nightmares. That's great.
Yes. Yeah. I I just read a short story by Riddle. Um, is it Margaret Riddle or Charlotte
Oh,
Riddle?
yeah.
Um,
Okay. Yes, I've
yeah,
heard of it.
it's called A Strange Christmas Game, and it's really
Ooh,
fun.
I'm gonna write
Uh,
that really quick. That
yeah,
sounds really good.
I enjoyed it. It's a man inherits an old rundown house that they say is haunted, and so he and his sister move in, and they got to try to figure out, is it haunted, and does the haunting reveal some things about a crime that happened in the past and that kind of thing.
How interesting.
It was a lot of
I'm
fun.
so interested.
Yeah,
So
not super scary,
fascinating.
but it's the kind of Christmas Eve Victorian story they would tell. So yeah, that was a good one.
And that's why I loved her Old Lady Mary. It
Mm,
was sort of, I don't know if it was exactly in response to Dickens' A Christmas Carol, but it kind of follows a similar kind of an idea where only the main character is, well, you've read it, right? So the main
hmm.
character is sort of like the Jacob Marley ghost who is
Yeah.
following around people. And it was so fascinating to me, that perspective. And it wasn't like a spooky ghost. It was more just introspective and trying to deal with and cope with death.
Hmm.
Which, I mean, you think of all the people she lost in her life, I'm sure that was on her mind a lot.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, very much. Yeah. You don't have that kind of loss without it impacting you in some
no
way.
kidding.
Yeah.
It has to come out in the writing, I'm sure.
Yeah. Yeah. So, do you have any books you would recommend people start? 'Cause, you look at that and you think, oh, there's so many. Where do I start?
No.
Um,
Where do we start? Well,
yeah.
start with that cool science fiction one. That sounds interesting. Of the ones I've read, I think if you want something light, not too hefty, then I think Old Lady Mary is a great place because it's shorter and it's just interesting. And or the Rector that I'm starting right now. I really like it's
Hmm.
very short and it would give you just a little tiny taste. I'm almost finished with it. I started a bit early for Victober because I have some stuff going on that I can't read next week. And and I thought I would be reading it for a long time and I'm like, "Oh, it's just 4 chapters and I'm almost done and it's great." So that would be a great place to start just to get a little tiny sample and see if you like her writing. And honestly, her this one feels a lot like Gaskell to me. It's just sort of like a
Hmm.
gentle, kind of homey feel to it, and you have a rector and some different sort of Trollope too. It felt a little bit like Barchester Chronicles. And I actually really want to
Yeah.
ask her if she and Trollope, like, I can't remember who wrote their series first, but they both have these series about the clergy, and it's so interesting.
Right.
But anyway, so yeah, that would be a great place to start. And then if you want a little bit more meaty book, Hester is definitely wonderful and lots to think about. I think Hester, if you like North and South kind of a vibe, it
Hmm.
felt somehow a little bit more like that, a little more conflict, a little more. The characters have more grittiness to them. So,
Yeah. 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 I would agree. Yeah. It looks like my first book of Oliphant's was Hester,
mhm.
which that one is in my top 10 of all Victorian novels. That one
Oh,
is
that's
so
awesome.
good.
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah, if you like really chunky, meaty books, then her Miss Marchbanks, I think is how you pronounce her name.
Yeah.
Uh, that book is also pretty good from what I recall from reading it. That one though, it's so long. There's so much there. That one's definitely gonna need a reread
Uh-huh. Yeah,
from
I
me.
actually,
So
that was the first one that I purchased. And then I heard that it was part of that series, the
yeah.
Carlingford Chronicles. And so I was like, okay, well, I've got to start at the beginning. So I finally collected all of them and I'm diving in. So I'm excited to get to it.
Right, right. Yeah, I didn't even realize it was part of a series. It
Yeah, I think
certainly
it can
reads,
stand alone.
yeah. But like you, I found out I think just this last year it was part of a series. So
Mhm.
so yeah, went back to read. So I've read The Rector, and there's one that comes after that. I think it's called
The,
The
yeah,
Doctor's Family.
yeah, that's it.
Yeah. And yeah, I haven't read one I haven't liked yet.
Same.
I will say about A Beleaguered City, I do feel like that one is a bit more of a challenge to read. But like I said, it's also been a while, and sometimes I read too much at once, and then I start the stories start blending. So
I know that definitely happens, especially if you're reading like Victober's Ball, the same kind of books at the same
yeah.
time. I'm actually already having that problem. I'm reading a Charlotte Mary Young book, and I keep having to remind myself this is not the Rector from the Rector. This is a different Rector.
Yeah, yeah.
A little
which,
confused.
which
I'm
which
reading The Heir of Redcliffe.
oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
I haven't read any of hers yet. I'm actually going to be reading my first Charlotte Mary Young book this Victober. So,
Well, which one are
um,
you reading?
The Stokesley Secret.
Oh, I haven't read that one.
Yeah, it's like a novella, I guess.
Okay.
And I'm doing a buddy read with that, which those are buddy reads are fun. If
Oh, it makes it so much better if you have company. I feel like that is sort of an unfair advantage. If you do a buddy read, you're going to like the book probably a lot
yeah,
more than
yeah,
reading solo.
right. Um, yeah. So I guess real quick, I want to make sure these don't go too long, but.
Right. That's fine.
Well, stay tuned for part two, I guess. But if you want to just give a quick pitch for somebody who might be on the fence about reading Margaret Oliphant, how do you convince them to do it?
Oh, maybe it would help people want to read her if they knew that she was rumored to be Queen Victoria's favorite author. So I
Oh,
love to imagine the Queen reading, I don't know what would have been published when she was like in that mode of wanting to read books and stuff. But I
hmm
love the thought of her reading and maybe chuckling over some of the passages. And also, if you like Dickens, she does reference Dickens quite a bit, in at least the ones that I've read. I know that Old Lady Mary, I think, referenced Martin Chuzzlewit, and she was sort of an author who didn't mind pulling in things of her time.
hmm
And yeah, she's great. Just wonderful. And if you're worried about, the bigger, heftier books, she has so many short stories. Short stories are such a great gateway to get a little sample of an author and decide if there's somebody you want to pursue further. So definitely worth your
yeah,
time.
yeah, absolutely. And some of those Victorian short stories, if it's 20 pages long, it'll be a long 20 pages. It's got some meat to it.
They don't just, yeah, they don't go fast, but they're worth it.
Yeah, yeah. I have a collection of Trollope's short stories, and I was
Yes.
trying to read one this morning. Yeah, and I had a headache, and my vision wasn't right, and I'm like, "Oh, I can't do this right now, Trollope.
Be
Let's
in the
go.
right moment. And sometimes, okay, there's no shame in listening to an audiobook version too. And I know
Right.
LibriVox has a lot of free ones. I'm sure there are other places as well. But sometimes for me, hearing it while I'm doing something else really helps. And it helps somebody else doing the flow of the speech for me because sometimes Victorian literature can be a little bit heavy and verbose, and
Mm-hmm.
that definitely helps.
Yeah. But in some way, I know at least a lot of the stories were read aloud to the family.
Right?
You know.
So that as intended.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Exactly. Well, Jess, thank you so much for coming on today. We desperately tried to stay on topic, but oh well.
We did a
uh,
pretty good job.
yeah, we did. Yeah, we did. Yeah, for me, this was a good one. uh, all right, and again, you're on Instagram mostly at Dickens and Docks. There, great Instagram follow there. So everyone go and follow her on Instagram. I know she'll appreciate it. She's always got something fun going on there. So
Thank you.
thanks again, Jess.
Thanks for having me.